Hannah Thomas, LBC.
The IFS say your plans simply don't add up, and your commitments to it so far would cost more than you claim by tens of billions of pounds per year. You came here today with quite a populist standpoint to try and get votes, but are you really going to be able to deliver on any of your pledges? If so, how? Or are you just making false promises?
Well, ambitions are not false promises. I think that's quite an important distinction that we ought to draw. The IFS, the government-funded IFS, are criticising reform. Good Lord, who knew? If you want to talk about financial irresponsibility, have a look at what Richard Tice has been saying over the last couple of years. Backed up very much, I thought, by Dominic Lawson in the Sunday Times yesterday. Unfunded public sector pensions are not out by tens of billions, they're out by 2 or 3 trillion. If you want to talk about financial mismanagement or damage longer term to the UK economy, we can have a debate with you about our cost savings on net zero, our cost savings on what the Bank of England pays out for QE, and we can debate that, but bear in mind all the while the IFS or any other, Mel Stride, no one's ever heard of him, I know, but Mel Stride criticising our figures, this country, right across this country, is out by 2 or 3 trillion, maybe more, on public sector pensions. So I think there are some big debates we need to have around that. I've got 2 more. Lucy Dunn, Spectator.
Hi, Nigel. On devolution, if Reform UK gets into government in Wales next year, will the party move to scrap the Senedd? And if that is not reform policy, will you block any candidates who do want to do away with the Welsh Parliament?
Well, the blockade is going to continue. As far as devolution is concerned, look, the devolution genie, there are some that think we can just get rid of the Senedd, get rid of it, start again. That isn't going to happen. That is not going to happen. And in fact, the devolution principle is being rolled out through many parts of England as well. So that debate is dead. I think the argument that we're going to put is that devolution has not served Wales well, not because of the principle itself, but because of the incompetence for 26 years that have been running it, who seem to have developed within Cardiff Bay a very twisted sense of their own priorities. Tony Diver, Daily Telegraph. It's very dark out there.
Hello, thank you. Now, I'm just going to ask you one more time about this coal policy. Could you just be specific about what exactly it is you're proposing? You're talking about small specialist mines. Where would they be? Are you talking about just mines in Wales, or would you be looking to do this in England as well, if you had the opportunity? And can we just be clear that the government in Westminster has banned licences for new coal mines? So if you were to win next year, there'd be no prospect of any new mines until at least well after the next general election.
We can always have a fight, can't we? We can always have a fight, and who knows, there may be situations where we just do things. I mean, we'll have to come to that, cross that bridge. Look, I mean, for example, the coal that would have suited beautifully for Scunthorpe could be produced in Cumbria. And yet we were importing it from Japan, I think it was, to keep those blast furnaces open right at the last minute. There are still uses for coal. They are not the mass usages that we used to have years ago, but there are still usages, and if that's the case, we should produce our own. Where would they be sited? To be honest, it depends on geology more than anything else. I mean, that's the honest answer. It depends on that more than anything else. But that same principle goes for gas. That same principle goes for oil. If we can produce these things ourselves, we should produce these things ourselves, including meat, and not tell Welsh farmers they've got to get rid of 20% of their livestock. So I think you can see a common principle that is running through those things. Lucy White is here from Bloomberg.
Hi, Nigel. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions around your plans for re-industrialization. So GMB Union this morning, the regional secretary, has called this, your plans for the steelworks in Port Talbot, more lies from an opportunistic chancer. What would your reply be to them, and do you believe that you have the backing of working people in Port Talbot? And if I can ask as well on coal tips, Wales has seen some disasters resulting from coal tips. How do you plan to stop that happening again? And would you put more regulation around the coal industry were you to reopen it?
Well, on coal tips and on disasters that can occur, remember, I mean, in those days, Wales was producing up to 60 million tonnes of coal every year. We are talking about small-scale, specialist coal extraction for areas in which we need it. Every house in Britain is not going back to a coal fire. So in terms of spoil and waste, the problem is but a small fraction of what it was in the heyday of mass coal mining in Wales. All right. Look, the GMB have given the Labour Party between 25 and 30 million pounds in the last 5 years. They are the biggest sponsors of the Labour Party. Their leadership and the Labour government are tied together. They see us as a challenge, and therefore they'll be rude about us. What you will find is that increasingly GMB members are going to vote for us. And the more GMB members vote for us, the more upset GMB officials and leaders will become. All right? So then, there are some very, very big splits within the union movement. Frankly, the trade unions have done nothing to protect British workers through open borders over the last 20, 25 years. They've utterly failed to stand up for working men and women in this country, and I hold that view very, very strongly. Tamara Cohen from Sky News.
Thank you, Mr Farage. Just over here. It's not just this weekend. In the parties that you have run, people seem to relatively often clash, resign, unresign, go off message. Do you see that as your fault? Is it you? And if so, do you see that as something that you need to work on if Reform are to be a serious party of government?
Well, that's your narrative and you're going to stick with it. I think the evidence actually is very different. You'll find around me the teams that work with me, many of them have been with me for over a decade. One or two that I've worked with for 25 years. People I employed in the city back in the 90s are still personal friends. I am someone that maintains long-term friendships, and I'll do that. But if ever anybody talks behind my back, or if anybody betrays that trust, then yeah, I'll never speak to them again. It's quite simple, and they should expect the same level of trust back from me. And when it comes to fallouts in politics, I mean, well, just have a look at the chaos of the Conservatives over the last few years. So look, I am loyal to people all the while they're loyal to me. If they're not, then things change. Inevitably what you get are people who think they're bigger and better than me. The parties will be better off run by somebody else than me. And that's what leads to the public fallouts, because they don't like the result of it. Harry Hawson from ITV.
Thank you very much, Nigel. We've seen the chaos of the Conservative government in recent years, all the infighting that's gone on there, and we saw the way that voters reacted. Aren't you worried that voters will look at the events of the last week and make the same conclusion about your party, should it get into power? And secondly, just on winter fuel, if I may, you've talked about trying to pressure the government on U-turning on that. Do you think the government should U-turn completely, even though that would cost an extra £450 million and it would benefit only the very wealthiest pensioners in society?
Well, when it comes to chaos and losing chairman, I'd like to remind you, Harry, that the Conservative Party have had 7 chairmen since 2022 and 4 leaders. I mean, tough to keep up. Look, let's be clear. I think Zia's done a great job. Under enormous pressure. Oh, and by the way, a level of abuse, racist abuse online, unlike, I think, anybody in modern politics has ever had to put up with. He made a mistake. He got it wrong. It plunged us for a few hours into a difficult place. He expressed his regret to me. I forgave him. I did say don't do it again, but I forgave him. All right? And actually, he comes back after a 48-hour exeat. He comes back into a very, very big job It's a very important brief. It links directly into what we have to do here, and the first question that was asked by Patrick Maguire today, and the testimony given to us by our two defecting councillors this morning, and we're broadening the management team, and no, we look better and stronger because of it. Would I rather those couple of days hadn't happened? Yes, but look how quickly and effectively we have dealt with it. Thank you. Next on my list is Adam Cherry from GB News.
Thank you. Do you have a rough timeline for how long it will take to get the blast furnaces operational again, and how much it will cost to reopen the coal mines?
Look, I made it very, very clear. Reopening a blast furnace is no easy thing. This one has closed. That was the tragedy. That was why Richard Tyson and I went up to Scunthorpe when there were literally 3 days of supplies left, or 3 days for an order to get made so they wouldn't close down. And hey, the government responded to that as well, didn't it? Scunthorpe would have gone if Richard Tyson and I had not gone there on that day. So yes, it is a massive, expensive job to reopen blast furnaces. We're going to need cheaper energy, we're going to need much cheaper local coal, and we're going to need private business partners prepared to come into a joint venture with government to make it work. Yes, it is going to cost in the low billions to do it, and I'm not even pretending it'll be easy. But what I am saying is we are going to be using huge amounts of steel over the decades to come. We have to do everything we can to try to start thinking about being more self-sufficient. And I think that applies also to food production, to energy production, to so many other things. This is a change of mindset. This is saying there is such a thing as the national interest. We can't rely on our neighbours to sell us things and give us underwater electricity. We have to start thinking about self-sufficiency much, much, much more.